The wind howled through the snow-laden forest in the far east as Alex held his 12-year-old daughter, Mia's hand. They walked briskly, aiming to reach their home before a blizzard descended. Their two German shepherds ran ahead, guiding them through the deep snow. Flurries swirled around them, and the trees groaned under the blasts of the cold wind. Suddenly, Hans, the larger dog, stopped. His ears pricked up. His nose pointed towards a small ravine. Without a sound, he darted into it, and Rex, the second dog, followed. The dogs moved in unison, with the confidence born from years of shared hunting and exploration. Mia gasped, pointing to where the dogs had frozen beside a dark patch in the snow. Alex approached, his heart quickening as he saw the shepherds examining a tiny tiger cub, almost motionless, its fur matted with blood and its body bearing wounds. The small form shivered from the cold, each breath appearing to be an immense struggle. The cub's breathing was shallow, its amber eyes blinked in pain. Alex knelt in the snow, removed his gloves, and placed his warm palm on the minuscule creature. He glanced around and noticed peculiar tracks in the snow, imprints of large boots, and a few meters away, a glint of a brass shell casing. The bloody patches on the pristine white snow painted a grim tableau. Clear tracks of heavy boots belonging to several individuals, a string of shell casings from high-caliber weaponry, and further on, a trail of dark blood where a large body had evidently been dragged. Everything pointed to poachers who had likely killed the mother tiger and taken her carcass, leaving the injured cub to perish in the snow. As a biologist, Alex had always adhered to a strict professional code of non-interference with the natural course of events. But before him now lay a defenseless creature, a victim of human cruelty rather than natural selection. In this instance, all professional rules yielded to a simple human obligation. "Mia, we can't leave it here," Alex stated. "It will freeze to death, and Emma will kill me if I bring a tiger home." His voice betrayed his hesitation, yet he knew he was crossing a significant boundary between humanity and the wild. "Please, Daddy," Mia pleaded, her eyes welling up with tears. "We can't just abandon it here." Her small hands were clenched into fists, her gaze filled with a determination Alex couldn't ignore. Surprisingly, the shepherds showed no aggression. Instead, hands cautiously licked the cub's head. It was a protective gesture rarely witnessed towards what was typically considered a rival predator. The dog even whined softly as if urging its owners to hasten their decision. Emma, Alex's wife and a veterinarian, had initially been displeased by the appearance of a wild animal in their home, but quickly shifted into professional mode. Her hands efficiently prepared the necessary instruments and medications, her eyes reflecting a mixture of professional interest and concern. "Alex, do you realize what this is?" Her voice trembled. "This is an Amur tiger. There are fewer than 500 left in the wild, and you've brought a cub into our home." Her words conveyed not so much an accusation as an acknowledgement of the immense responsibility that had suddenly fallen upon their family. "We didn't have a choice," Alex replied. "Judging by the tracks and casings, its mother was likely a victim of poachers. They were here very recently." He looked at the cub's injured paws, a growing resolve hardening his heart. Emma examined the cub, noting its hypothermia, its wounds, and its malnourishment. After stabilizing the little one, she placed it in a box lined with blankets in the kitchen, uncertain if the cub would survive the night. The cub was so small and fragile, its body barely able to shed the blood and dirt. "Even if it survives," Emma said quietly as Mia drifted off to sleep, "what will we do with the tiger? In a year, it will weigh more than you." She gazed thoughtfully at Hans, who had settled down beside the box, acting as a silent sentinel. But the next morning, the family discovered something remarkable. The tiger cub had not only survived, but was nestled among the two shepherds, who had formed a protective circle around it. Hans lay closest to the cub, his large body radiating warmth throughout the night. The cub's eyes, dull with pain the day before, now held a spark of curiosity and a hint of cheerfulness. Mia named the cub Kai, a name signifying the strength the little one desperately needed to survive. Around this time, a severe snowstorm struck the region, cutting off their home from the outside world. Roads were impassable, telephone lines were down, and contact with the wildlife department became impossible. This enforced isolation provided little Kai with the much-needed time to recover. Each day he grew noticeably stronger. His wounds gradually healed, and his fur began to regain its natural vibrant orange hue. Then, peculiar things began to happen. In just 2 weeks, Kai started exhibiting unusual behavior. The cub moved not like a typical cat or tiger. He began to mimic the confident, powerful gait of the shepherds. When Hans sat and surveyed the room, Kai would sit beside him, perfectly replicating his posture. This elicited a mixture of surprise, admiration, and smiles from the family. Observing Kai was astonishing. With each passing day, his behavior became less like that of a wild tiger and more like the canine habits he diligently copied from Hans and Rex. The cub would come when called, an exceptionally rare trait in wild felines. He played chase with Rex, learned to fetch toys, and even attempted to bark, producing strange sounds that were a blend of growls and hisses. In the evenings, he patiently sat at Alex's feet, while Alex made notes about the cub's behavior in his journal, as if understanding the importance of the research. One day, Alex witnessed a remarkable scene. Sensing a small animal in the garden, Kai instantly adopted a hunting stance. His muscles tensed for a pounce, the natural instinct of a tiger. But then, Hans let out a soft growl, and Kai, as if remembering his canine nature, immediately relaxed and stepped back, wagging his tail in a show of sheepishness. This astonishing fusion of tiger instincts and canine upbringing created something truly unique in Kai. Not quite a tiger, but not a dog either, but something entirely new, never before seen in nature. "He seems to think he's a dog," Emma laughed as Kai tried to dig in the snow with his paws, just like the shepherds did. "I've never seen anything like it." Her professional skepticism was gradually giving way to genuine admiration. She began her own observation journal, noting how the cub was adopting the dog's habits, but occasionally displaying unique traits for his species. 4 months passed. Kai had transformed into a healthy young tiger with distinctive behavioral traits. He woke up with the 2 dogs, ate with them, and had even learned to patrol their territory boundaries, as Hans had taught him. He had become an integral part of the family, responding instantly to his name and greeting everyone at the door. The most astonishing sight was their nights. The large striped predator slept peacefully, curled up between the 2 shepherds, as if all 3 belonged to the same species. Kai possessed an incredible combination of a tiger's natural grace and strength. Its ability to attack with lightning speed, move silently, and climb to unimaginable heights, coupled with purely canine traits of loyalty to the family, territorial defense, and social receptiveness. As the winter frost intensified, this unusual trio huddled closer together, forming a living island of warmth and mutual protection that spoke volumes about their true kinship. By 8 months of age, Kai weighed around 70 kilograms, and his size was beginning to present challenges. He still tried to sleep on the sofa, though he occupied nearly all of it. When he ran through the house, he would accidentally knock over furniture. Once he demolished a cabinet simply by rubbing against it. But despite his size, he retained his gentleness and caution around Mia, as if aware of his own strength. "We can't keep him in the house anymore," Alex said, watching the tiger attempt to squeeze into a doghouse where he no longer fit. "He needs more space." His voice carried not only practicality, but also concern for the future of his unusual pet. The family constructed a spacious enclosure for Kai, connected to the house by a special corridor. The tiger could freely access their territory, but now slept in his own shelter. However, mornings often found Hans and Rex sleeping in the enclosure beside the tiger. Kai had formed a special bond with Hans. The elder dog had become more than just a brother to him. He was a mentor. With a single look or a quiet growl, Hans could correct the young tiger's behavior. Mia filmed several videos of Kai and posted them on social media. The tiger, who behaved like a dog, quickly became an internet sensation. People began sending parcels with toys for the tiger and writing enthusiastic comments. Each new video of Kai playing with the shepherds or attempting to bark garnered millions of views. However, popularity had its downsides. When the roads were finally cleared, Inspector Lin paid them a visit, responding to a report of an illegally kept tiger. However, his stern expression softened slightly when he saw Kai greet him by wagging his tail like a large striped dog. "This is an Amur tiger," Inspector Lin stated sternly, "one of the rarest predators on the planet. Keeping such an animal without a permit is against the law." The inspector attempted to maintain an official tone, but it was evident that the tiger's unusual behavior intrigued him. He was surprised to see Kai respond to his name and behave like a dog. But the law was the law. The inspector's eyebrows rose in surprise when the tiger brought him a ball, expecting him to throw it. Keeping wild animals without a permit is prohibited, especially large predators, the man continued. I must report this to the department. His eyes conveyed sympathy, but also a firm resolve to follow the rules. Alex immediately submitted an application for a special permit to keep the wild animal. While awaiting a response, Kai continued to grow alongside his canine brethren. The tiger was now partially grown, with more distinct stripes and a strong physique, but his behavior remained a strange mix of two species. In the mornings, he followed Hans, checking the perimeter of their territory with the seriousness of a guard dog. 2 months later, a response arrived. The application was denied. The Department of Wildlife demanded that Kai be transferred for reintroduction into the wild. This news hit the entire family like a bolt from the blue. Mia cried incessantly, and the shepherds, as if sensing the distress, stayed by the tiger's side. You don't understand, Alex tried to explain to the department director. He doesn't know how to be a tiger. He thinks he's a dog. Alex laid out all his research and notes on Kai's unusual behavior for the director. Instincts will take over, the director responded insistently. His place is in the wild. Yet, a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes as he watched Kai sit and offer a paw at Alex's command. Mia published an emotional video online that garnered millions of views and captured the attention of the entire country. Under public pressure, the Department of Wildlife agreed to send a team of experts to assess Kai's situation. Hope resurfaced in the family's hearts before the final decision was made. The department director, a zoologist, and Inspector Lin spent an entire day observing Kie, how he moved, interacted with dogs and people, and responded to signals. They were astonished by the tiger's level of adaptation. They were particularly impressed by how Kai helped Hans herd the domestic chickens, guiding them into their coop without any sign of predatory behavior. In my 30 years of work, I've never seen anything like it, admitted the zoologist. He genuinely believes he's part of a canine pack. His hand gently scratched Kai behind the ear, and the tiger responded by closing his eyes in contentment. The department director acknowledged that it was a special case, but the law allowed for no exceptions. His face was unreadable, but his tense shoulders betrayed an internal struggle between duty and compassion. A tiger is a wild animal, he stated. Its place is in its natural habitat. But his words sounded less certain as Kai rested his head on his lap, as if seeking protection. The zoologist agreed that Kai was too domesticated to survive in the wild. After much deliberation, they proposed a compromise. Everyone gathered around the table, the atmosphere thick with tension and fragile hope. We will release him into a nature reserve 200 kilometers from here, the director suggested. We'll fit him with a GPS collar for tracking. If he can adapt to the wild, that will be the best outcome. If not, we'll consider other options. It wasn't what the family had hoped to hear, but it was the best they could expect at that moment. The day of separation arrived all too quickly. Mia cried continuously, clinging to the neck of the tiger, who had now grown into a nearly adult animal. Emma prepared a special food package that would last for 2 weeks, though she knew Kai needed to learn to hunt. Each piece was packed with care and concern for his future. Alex attached the GPS tracker collar to the tiger. His hands trembled as he stroked the thick orange fur one last time. He recalled every day since finding the small, injured cub to the powerful beast standing before him now. You are strong, he whispered to Kai. You will manage. His words carried hope, but his eyes betrayed his fear and doubt. But the most heartbreaking reaction came from the two shepherds. As Kai was placed in a special transport crate, Hans and Rex whined and barked incessantly, trying to prevent the inspectors from taking him. Hans stood like a wall in front of the vehicle door, moving only at Alex's command. His loyal eyes seemed to question why their pack member was being taken away. He will be all right, Emma tried to reassure everyone, but her voice trembled. She watched the departing vehicle with an expression as if she were seeing off her own child. At the release site, a wooded valley with a nearby river, they opened the crate door. Kai cautiously emerged, sniffing the fresh air. He surveyed the forest, then turned to look at Alex and Mia. His eyes held confusion and something akin to incomprehension and quiet resentment. The tiger didn't understand why his only family was abandoning him. For a moment, it seemed the predator would not move. Then his attention was drawn to a sound in the bushes. Wild instinct took over, and Kai lunged at the sound with the speed of a true predator. In an instant, he vanished into the forest. A sunbeam illuminated the tiger's orange fur, and then he dissolved forever among the trees. Mia sobbed in her parents' arms. On the drive home, the GPS tracking screen flickered, showing Kai heading deeper into the woods. Every movement of the small dot on the screen sent pangs of pain through the family's hearts. "Everything will be fine," Alex whispered, trying to believe his own words. "This is where he belongs." But his gaze remained fixed on the screen, watching the tiger's movements with a mixture of anxiety and hope. But when they returned home, Hans and Rex refused to enter. They sat on the porch, their eyes fixed on the distant hills where Kai had disappeared. Their loyalty to their unusual brother was unwavering. A week had passed since Kai was released into the wild. Mia checked the GPS data, tracking every movement of the tiger hourly. Initially, it seemed Kai was adapting, cautiously navigating his new territory in search of shelter and water sources. But his movements were hesitant, as if he were looking for something he couldn't quite find. At home, the two shepherds had fallen into a deep depression. They refused to eat, didn't play, and spent hours sitting on the highest hill of their territory, their eyes fixed on the spot where Kai had vanished. Hans occasionally whined softly, as if calling for his striped brother to return home. On the 8th day, the GPS tracker showed the first unexpected movement. After days of aimless wandering within the reserve, Kai suddenly began moving in a specific direction, and Alex, who had been constantly monitoring the tiger's movements, was the first to notice. "Look, he's not just wandering, he's moving with purpose," he pointed to the screen. "Incredible! The route line is pointing directly towards home." Alex double-checked the coordinates and silently showed the screen to Mia and Emma. "He's coming back to us," Mia whispered, her eyes shining for the first time in many days. The entire family's hearts filled with trembling hope. Even Emma, always cautious with her predictions, couldn't hide her excitement, and Hans, as if sensing the change in his owner's moods, suddenly stopped whining and stood by the window, looking alertly towards the forest. On the 10th day, the GPS unexpectedly showed that Kai had changed direction. He was moving away from their home. The family's hearts sank. Had instincts finally taken over? Emma gently remarked that perhaps it was for the best. Kai had found his way in the wild. But after 12 hours, it became clear. The tiger was circumventing a large populated area, choosing a longer but safer route. Following this maneuver, he once again headed directly towards their home, not deviating from his chosen path even slightly. Even Alex, an experienced biologist, was astonished by such determination. With each passing day, Kai's movement pattern became clearer. This was not random wandering. He was moving purposefully, heading home. Each new GPS report confirmed their suspicions. Kai was returning. Initially, his journey was slow and intermittent. Many times he stopped to hunt or rest, but after each stop, he always continued in the same direction. Neither mountains nor rivers could alter his course. Alex calculated the distance. Kai had covered 50 kilometers in the first 5 days, an incredible achievement for a tiger, especially considering the difficult terrain and the need to hunt. "This cannot be a mere coincidence," he told Mia. Hope flickered in his eyes, a hope that had been absent since their parting with the tiger. As they analyzed the data together, it became clear that it was indeed not a coincidence. The GPS showed the challenging journey Kai had undertaken. Every kilometer covered was a victory of willpower over instinct. On the 6th day, the tiger approached a wide river where the spring thaw had made the current particularly strong. A normal tiger would avoid deep water at all costs. But Kai, trained by dogs who were not afraid of water, found a narrower spot and swam across. The GPS data showed him battling the current, but not deviating from his path. On the 7th day, Kai reached a busy highway. The GPS indicated that the tiger waited, hidden in the bushes by the roadside, for almost 3 hours. Then, in a gap between cars, he sprinted across the road. His adaptability and patience demonstrated remarkable intelligence and resolve, but the most dramatic test awaited him on the 9th day of his journey. The GPS signal showed that Kai had entered an area designated as a bear sanctuary. Forest rangers had warned them about a large population of brown bears in this region. Alex's heart tightened with fear for his unusual pet. The GPS markers indicated that Kai had stopped deep in the forest. His signal remained stationary for several hours. Then suddenly, the GPS showed chaotic movement, sharp jumps in different directions. Alex, watching the screen, turned pale. He and Emma stared intently at the blinking dots, praying for Kai's safety. "Something has happened," he told Emma. "That's how an animal moves in a struggle." His voice was strained to the limit, his hands clenched involuntarily into fists. 8 minutes of intense, chaotic movement followed. Then Kai became stationary again for a whole hour. The family watched the screen in silence, fearing the worst. When the signal began to move again, everyone exhaled with relief, but the speed of movement was noticeably slower than before. Even Hans, who had been by Alex's side the entire time, whined softly as if sensing the danger threatening his brother. "He's injured," Emma whispered, "but alive and still heading our way." Her words carried pride for their tiger's resilience and willpower. Later, after examining GPS data and surveying the area, forest rangers confirmed that a confrontation between the tiger and a large brown bear had occurred at that location. Evidence of the struggle, tufts of orange tiger fur, and drops of blood indicated a fierce clash. The fact that Kai had survived a fight with a massive brown bear, an animal typically outweighing and overpowering a tiger, was nothing short of miraculous. Scratches on tree bark testified to a brutal standoff. Every obstacle Kai navigated, rivers, highways, the bear encounter, and territories of other predators, astonished the family. Tiger behavior literature suggested these predators never migrated such vast distances, especially in a singular direction, but Kai was no ordinary tiger. He was driven home by his love for his unconventional, mixed family. On the 12th night, the worst happened. The GPS signal ceased entirely. The last recorded position was an area with large rocks and dense trees, approximately 80 kilometers from home. The silence of the signal was deafening to the family, accustomed to constant tracking. Alex and Mia immediately set off for the location. They searched all day, calling Kai's name, checking every rock crevice and thicket. There were no signs of the tiger, save for a fragment of the GPS collar's strap snagged on a low branch. This small piece of leather and metal was their sole remaining link to the missing animal. Alex imagined what might have occurred. Kai likely snagged his collar on something in the woods, tried to free himself, and damaged it. But could the tiger continue his journey? Was he injured or had something worse befallen him? These questions gnawed at Alex as he and Mia returned home, hearts heavy. The next 3 days were long, agonizing stretches of waiting and fragile hope. Mia was so distraught she barely left her room. Emma contacted every ranger station and veterinary hospital within a 200-kilometer radius. Each phone call made their hearts pound, but there was no news of the tiger. Alex continued to pore over maps, trying to predict Kai's potential route after the last signal point. Based on the tiger's average travel speed before losing GPS contact, he calculated that Kai would need another 3 to 4 days to reach home if he continued in the same direction without further injury. Red lines on the map, traced by his trembling finger from the last signal's location, consistently pointed in one direction: home. Kai's fur protects him in cold conditions, but he needs food and water, Alex analyzed, and he had to avoid other large predators, wolves, bears, and even humans. His eyes held a mixture of pride for Kai's endurance and sharp anxiety for his fate. The stark reality was that Kai's chances of survival dwindled with each passing hour, yet no one dared voice it, clinging to silent hope. On the third night after losing the signal, as the dejected family attempted to eat dinner, their 2 German shepherds suddenly sprang to their feet as if jolted. Hands bolted towards the door with furious barks. Rex followed, his tail wagging with excitement. Their sudden agitation was so intense that their dinner plates rattled on the table. Alex rushed to open the door, his heart pounding wildly. At the edge of the yard, bathed in the spotlight's glow, stood a large, lean figure. The silhouette was still, save for a tail swaying slowly from side to side. Kai, dirty, thinner, without his GPS collar, but alive. And he was looking directly at them. His amber eyes gleamed in the darkness like twin moons. Fresh wounds marred his flank, and one paw was held gingerly, But even from a distance, it was unmistakably their Kai. Time seemed to stand still in that moment, and then something extraordinary happened. Kai made a sound, not a tiger's roar, but a strange guttural bark, attempting to mimic the greeting of his canine brethren. It was the sound of homecoming. Later, analyzing Kai's journey based on partial GPS data and distance calculations, Alex estimated the tiger had traversed at least 200 kilometers of varied terrain, crossed 2 major rivers, navigated 1 main highway, passed through populated areas, and entered the territories of other predators, and all of this in approximately 16 days. The line on the map representing his travels was almost perfectly straight, as if guided by an internal compass. Experts would later attempt to explain this behavior through geomagnetic location abilities, exceptionally developed spatial memory, and unusual migratory instincts, but their scientific explanations always seemed inadequate in the face of what the family had witnessed with their own eyes. For the family, however, the only explanation was affection. Kai had returned not just to the same place, but to his family. His incredible journey was propelled by something far more potent than instinct: love and devotion. The moment Kai spotted the 2 German shepherds in the yard, his demeanor completely shifted. He bounded forward, no longer with the cautious gait of a wild tiger, but with the joyous urgency of a dog reunited with its pack. His powerful body moved with an agility that belied his obvious exhaustion and injuries. The 2 German shepherds rushed towards him, and all 3 animals merged into a tangle of happy yips and wet fur. Mia, sobbing, ran out and dropped to her knees beside them. Alex and Emma followed, disbelief etched on their faces. Even in the flashlight's beam, they could see Kai licking the dogs' muzzles, and them reciprocating, acknowledging him as a brother after their long separation. Kai, the wild tiger, had navigated over 200 kilometers of unfamiliar territory, maintaining a straight course to the only home he had ever known. This journey defied everything scientists understood about tiger behavior, telling a story of a connection that transcended natural boundaries. The family escorted Kai to his enclosure, where Emma immediately began his examination. The tiger had lost weight. His front paw bore a deep gash, possibly where the collar had snagged and he'd tried to break free. His flank showed evidence of powerful bear claws, scars that would remain with him forever. But otherwise, he was, astonishingly, healthy after his arduous trek. His eyes shone brightly as he gazed at his human family, as if to say, "I'm home." "He went through absolute hell," Emma whispered, cleaning his wounds. "But he made it. He's not just a young tiger, he's our Kai." Alex called Inspector Lin, who arrived the next morning, incredulous at the tiger's unbelievable return. The inspector's official demeanor dissolved into genuine astonishment as he saw Kai lying peacefully between the 2 German shepherds. "This doesn't happen," he murmured, watching Kai curl up between the 2 dogs, as if he had never left. "Tigers don't do this. They don't travel such distances just to return to a specific place, and they certainly don't seek out the company of other species." His hand unconsciously reached out to stroke the tiger's magnificent fur, still unable to grasp the reality. Mia knelt beside Kai, stroking his coat. "He doesn't think he's a tiger. He thinks he's part of our family." Her words held more truth than any scientific theory. Lynn looked at Alex and Emma. "I have to report this. You know they'll want to take him away again. Possibly even farther this time." His voice carried not only regret, but a sense of duty. But as Lynn looked into Kai's eyes, those wild amber eyes that unmistakably conveyed affection, he sighed. That gaze spoke louder than any scientific data or regulation. "I'll suggest an alternative. I can't promise anything, but this is an unprecedented case." He was already mentally drafting a report that would redefine scientists' understanding of tiger social behavior. 2 weeks later, the director of wildlife preservation personally returned to the home. He observed Kai and his surroundings, watching him chase with Rex, patrol boundaries with Hans, and sleep curled up beside both dogs. Every action the tiger took challenged established scientific perceptions of large predators. "What we're witnessing here defies everything we know about animal behavior," the director admitted. Kai was no longer an ordinary tiger, nor was he a pet. His gaze followed the tiger's every move with professional interest and human awe. The final decision came a month later. The family was granted a special, unprecedented permit. Kai was allowed to stay, provided it was part of a long-term study on animal behavior and interspecies social bonds. This was not merely an exception to the rules, but an acknowledgement of a unique case that could redefine the possibilities of wild animals. The family was required to build a spacious territory for Kai, and the two German shepherds were to undergo periodic health checks and participate in educational programs. Alex and Emma agreed immediately. Mia bounced with joy, and Hans and Rex, as if sensing the good news, barked happily. A year later, their home had become a small attraction, with groups of students and researchers observing Kai and his canine brothers. Alex published a scientific paper on this unique case, which quickly became one of the most cited works in behavioral zoology. Mia, now 14 years old, decided to become a zoologist herself. Her school project on Kai won first place at the National Science Exhibition. Kai had fully matured,